Good God, war. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing, nothing. Say it again, war. I've decided to go on a journey. Aldous Sandflys is leaving port. 100 million GP, 200 million GP, 300 million GP, and so on. Hey guys, again, we're going to now unpack Territory War in this new guild, 285 million, completely different experience. Some interesting things that I kind of experienced in Territory Wars, and we're going to talk about them. I'm going to show some of the defenses. I'm just talking about kind of how it's different, how it's different, shall I say, and how the game modes kind of changed when I'm in this guild and this type of guild, shall I say. Okay, let's start with the basics. So we're a 279 million GP guild. However, we run at only, because we're a life first guild, we run at around a 200, maybe about a 75% joining rate. So our joining percentage. So out of that, we get about 35 people that will join every TW. So bear that in mind. We're still putting 22 people down per section. So very similar to what I was doing in the old guild, 125, the same number of things, the same number of teams per area. And we've done 2 TWs now, so I'm going to kind of talk about both of them. I'll show some defenses in a second, but both matchups were against a very, very, very similar guild. Another guild around this 280, 200, and 300 million GP area, but with about a 70% joining rate. So whereas the meta at the lower levels of the 120 seemed to be like a couple of large accounts and then nothing, the meta at this area seems to be, well, it seems to be more around a kind of a 70% joining rate, and participations are more varied, shall we say. So we've actually, like I said, we've done 2 TWs. I'm going to show defenses from the first TW. So here is the front top zone. And what surprised me, actually, I'll let this play and you can have a look at it. And then I'll show the bottom zone. But what really, really surprised me was actually the top zones and the front zones weren't too different than what I saw in the 125 million GP. Especially the one that was the sort of the meta egg strategy of putting all the GLs on the front. We still have this sort of this 5-6 GLs per zone at the front and solid other teams. Again, a huge prevalence of bugs with the, is it Poggle Omicron? I had never faced that before. In the description below, there is a link to battles I did in TW, in the second TW. So if you want to watch like an hour worth of battles, you want to kind of pick through how I killed about 7 or 8 GLs, then have a look downstairs. But that's from the second TW. This is from the first TW. I guess what struck me is the TW started, well just before the TW started. So, I mean, I logged in with about an hour to go. There was still a few teams to fill. So I was able to kind of fill in 3 or 4 of the teams that were missing, filled the board, make sure everything was tied away. And I think that's kind of where I'm going to kind of start my journey with TW in this guild. This guild, like I say, is life first. It is a guild where people are going in, they're setting the defenses if they have them, but there's always going to be people who, unfortunately in life, they're off doing something else, and therefore they don't have the ability to to set the defenses. So you get a lot of variation where some people in the guild will end up being all attack, some will put all defense, some will attack very early, some will attack late. And in some rare cases, certainly in this guild, rare cases, people will not be able to attack or whatever. So, but you get this sort of very mixed participation. But you don't only get it on your guild. I've also kind of see it on the other guild where they will clear 2 or 3 teams and then stop for 8 hours. And then suddenly will clear more. You know, you get this sort of, or one account, there's maybe 1 or 2 accounts can clear some of the really hard teams, or who have 1 or 2 of the really hard characters. So it's a bit different. If I start to kind of show you the second zone, the third zone, I can't remember exactly which zones I'm going to show you, but they're kind of, I'll let them scroll past. You do get this egg formation again, where the meta does seem to be clearing half a board. That seems to be the what happens, is that you put down an overly hard defense, you clear, and then you clear half the board, sometimes with ships, sometimes without ships, and the teams get easier and easier and easier to the point of where they become farcical as you get towards the end. But if I looked at, and I put this graph up about the TW, the guild mix of GPs, inside here, a lot of people, a much flatter system. So whereas I felt that the egg formation and the people that were, a lot of people in the guild weren't able to be involved in TW, and that was quite a bad thing. In this guild, I guess everyone's kind of able to be involved. Yes, there are some meta GL teams on the front that need 1 or 2 of the higher accounts, but I do think people can get their teeth into it. So I'm not as worried when you get to this sort of 300 million, or, you know, where I am, 280 million GP guild. This sort of area that that people aren't involved. That was one of my concerns about the lower one. I think the only thing I would say about this is we're starting to get into datacrons, and I don't know if I showed it in the last video, but I'll talk a little bit about it today. I have about 80% of the level 9 datacrons of this entire guild in my account. The datacron balance is very skewed, and therefore people like me who are able to put a datacron on every single defensive team and have every single offensive team also having a datacron is a huge advantage. And I think something that I'm concerned about in the 300 million or 200, and I'm going to ask, I'll try to reach out to Gil, ask them more about it, is how much datacrons are affecting them. Because I guess where they are as a guild, if they're 6-7 million GP and 4 million GP accounts, they're not able to get maybe into hard conquest, or they're able to get into conquest but only do 1 or 2 zones. They're not getting high level crates. And that's going to kick into their datacron economy, and the amount of datacrons they're able to farm or they're able to get in their account. Certainly free to play is what I'm talking about, obviously. And that does start to have a huge effect, I would say, on TW. And I've noticed it very much that there are some teams in here with the ultra nasty datacrons, which literally have only 1 or 2 small counters to beat them. Those are really kind of dangerous inside this sort of area. So whereas I felt that the sort of the egg TW we saw at 120 was freezing out accounts and not able to take part, and therefore those people would lose heart and maybe not kind of get involved, I felt that at this area it's starting to really stretch the people with datacrons. It's datacrons are probably the decisive factor in this, and that comes from how much time people are able to put into conquest. So I actually think when I look at the guild, I don't think it's possible for a guild around 280 million where we are, who is focused on life, or who is, you know, not game focused, shall I say. They're not obviously going to be as invested or have the time for conquest as people that are opening their phone every 5 seconds, going to the toilet every 20 seconds because they've got to check where they are. So I think I think that's a beautiful balance. And I think that's probably the thing I'm learning about TW. We've won one and we've lost one. In the first one, Aldy scored 940 banners, I think. In the second one, about 1,200 banners, because I've had to put a lot more defensive teams down. But I would say that the Datacrons in particular are actually really hamstringing people and people who love the game but don't want to invest hours a day in it, because it's knocking into Conquest, and then that Conquest then knocks into TW, and that then kicks into GAC. So I'm actually kind of realizing now, and I think that's kind of what I'm forming, is that around this area where Datacrons are starting to be, or you're starting to get towards hard Conquest, Datacrons start to become more and more relevant, and that's kind of being quite a high decision maker. Did I enjoy the TW? The TW was weird. I would say that in both TWs, because 35 people have joined, without knowing these people individually, you don't really know whether it's 35 of the highest accounts, lowest accounts, who's going to attack when. So whereas, I guess, at very, very, very high levels, everyone's having to do attacks in the first hour, or they've got to do that, or they're getting called. Here, it's very much kind of come as you are, come when you want. And therefore, you get this sort of this clear 5-10 teams, then stops for hours. And then suddenly the zone's clear. And then the next zone's clear. And then it stops for 2 hours, 3 hours. Then suddenly ships, you get this much less sort of consistent progress. And that makes sense. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean you're going to win or lose more or less. I think the Datacrons are a bigger decision-making factor than when you're attacking or how much you're communicating. That's not for me, that's not a thing. But I think it makes it incredibly hard for officers, incredibly hard for anyone, because you can't really kill like counters, because you don't know what anyone's got left. You don't really know who's attacking when. You don't really know what they're attacking with. Nobody's really posting, oh god, I did this, So I do think there's a sort of it makes it slightly hard with the number of people joining. It makes it very, very hard for officers to actually plan things out the way that you might normally do, or you might do at a very high level. I'm trying to explain. However, you still get decent rewards even if you come second place. And TW has 3 positions: first place, second place, and didn't join. Now normally I get didn't join, and that is nothing. So even the second place rewards, I'm kind of looking at and thinking, oh, hang on, this stuff's not too bad. I could use these reroll mats. I use these zetas. This is quite, this is quite good. So like I say, we've won one, we've drawn one. We'll see what the next one is. But I would say that TW probably it's a decent game mode. However, I do think Datacrons are becoming more of an issue. I would say as I'm moving up, they're becoming more and more a difference maker. Anyway, that's my unpacking of TW. I hope you enjoyed this. If you want to see more about TW, if you want to ask me more, I think there'll be a link down below for a much longer video where I actually did some battles in TW. You'll be able to see more kind of there's no audio on it, so don't worry, you're not going to hear. But if you want to see more of the battles or what happened, I won one, I lost a few. Anyway, if you want to check that out, that's down in the link below. Otherwise, yeah, enjoy your Swiggle, enjoy your TW, and enjoy Aldy's Journey. I'm enjoying it. I am learning a lot about the guild, and like you'll start to see over the next 2 or 3 videos, this guild has again widened my understanding of players in the community. There are a lot of people who don't want to be dominated by this game. They want to enjoy life outside. And I think I'm learning more about that. And I take my hat off to the Galactic Funky Town for allowing me to be part of their experience. Anyway, until next part, may the force be with you. Good night. Good night. Enjoy your Swiggle.